companies have to either say, I am in an existing bucket that you're familiar with, which like we would say positioning in a mature category. That's really just strategy one. Strategy two would say, I am in a category, but you've probably never heard of it because it's new and emerging and nascent, right? Kind of got these 5 or 6 different ICPs. And I would say, well, what does that stand for, ICP? Well, it stands for ideal customer profile. And I'm like, interesting. Kind of feel like ideal should be one.
Just a quick one before we get into the episode, because I've got an offer that I'm sure all of you will be interested in. AEO is something that every B2B marketing team is trying to figure out right now, and most just don't know where to start. But at Blend, we're offering a full AEO analysis of your brand's AI visibility, and we'll walk you through exactly what we found and what to do about it. From full prompt analysis against your competitors to a citation analysis, where we'll look at different content types and how you're being cited for those and mentioned in those, and what you can actually do to be mentioned and cited much more for your brand, and what content you should create going forwards, and how you comprise that strategy really. We will drop a note in the description of this episode in the show notes, and you can go over there, request your free AEO audit, and we will deliver that to you. Hi everyone, welcome back to Demand Decoded. Dan here with you today, recording this after we've had this episode because we had a guest on the show today, Anthony Pierri from Fletch. He's co-founder of Fletch. If you haven't heard of them, they are a B2B positioning and messaging expert consultancy. Fascinating conversation. Anthony is a really, really fun guy. I know a lot of people would have heard of him before. Fletch have become, so well known for being the leading positioning and messaging experts when it comes to go-to-market. We often think of positioning and messaging as this maybe afterthought, not so sexy thing in go-to-market, but it is just one of the most crucial, fundamental things we have to get right in order for the rest of our engine to actually run efficiently and to drive growth for the business. So this conversation really touched on what are the core fundamental issues when it comes to positioning and messaging. How do you actually get that right? There's a lot of practical advice in here as well about how do you actually look at the market? How do you speak to stakeholders? How do you actually gather the information needed to change your positioning, to change your messaging? And how do you actually get it right? Super, super fun episode. Really enjoyed having Anthony on. Let's get into the show. Before we get into the podcast today, here's a quick word from our sponsors, HubSpot. Most businesses think they know their customers. They have the data, the records, the history, but it's scattered across 3 teams and 4 systems, which means nobody can actually use it. HubSpot connects it all. Every interaction, every support ticket, every conversation into one platform every team can work from. So when sales talk to a customer, marketing already know the full story. And when you know more, you grow more. Check out HubSpot.com, the agentic customer platform for growing businesses. All right, awesome. Well, Anthony, amazing to have you here. We finally got you on Demand Decoded, which I am just, super, super excited about. We've been fans of Fletch for such a long time. We use you guys as kind of the prime example of how to do B2B positioning and messaging the right way to finally get clarity for brands and how they want to position themselves in the market. So awesome to have you here. I wonder if you could just give us a bit of background about who you are and how you started Fletch with your co-founder and where you're at now.
Yeah, for sure. So I met my co-founder at a previous agency where we were doing all sorts of different things: product strategy, product design, product development. And I came from a completely different industry. I worked many, many years not in B2B technology, came in, basically took an entry-level sales role at this agency, and was really unsuccessful in getting anyone to buy us. It was basically like 9 months of banging my head against the wall with really nothing to show for it. And looking back, eventually I realized, I'm not the best salesperson in the world, but the challenges that were making it so difficult for me to sell was the fact that the agency served so many different groups of people in so many different ways. and it was sort of an intractable problem. And there was really no way to go out and do, let's say, outbound sales or even marketing, really, of a primarily fully custom service offering.
Yeah.
When the use case is always different, it's just impossible. It's like a general practice doctor knocking on people's doors and saying, "Hey, do you have any problems?" And they're like, "You knocked on my door. Like, what do you have to offer?" And they're like, "Well, I can't tell you what I have to offer until I figure out if you have any problems." So it's like there's no way to solve it. And the agency that we worked for tried hiring other marketing agencies and outbound sales coaches and all sorts of people, and no one could really solve it. And eventually, looking back, it's like it was a business model thing. It was a broad segment of people we were serving. So we realized that was not really going to work. And maybe the better option would be to say, could we come up with something that could be repeatedly sold to the same people and marketed in the same way? And so me and another guy at the company, who eventually becomes my co-founder with Fletch, we start ideating on things that we could theoretically sell as part of this agency. We kind of stumble into this positioning realm, start posting about it on LinkedIn, get a decent amount of traction, and then also get even further stumble into this homepage connection to positioning, which was not always tied together. There's lots of positioning experts who say, you can't see positioning on a homepage. Those things don't go together. And like looking back now, I'm like, why not? It feels like you should be able to see who the company's for and what makes them different on their homepage and why someone should pick you over the others, differentiation aspects and all that stuff. But so we were like saying internally, how are we going to audit or vet people's positioning to even see if they have a problem? So we started looking at their websites and we realized, wow, a lot of people have a really difficult time explaining what their product is, who it's for, how it works. And then we would post about these homepages on LinkedIn, and people would say, I saw your post breaking on the positioning. I think I have this problem. Can you fix the positioning on my homepage? So then they got connected and we said, well, maybe there's a service here. And so we started doing these kind of sprint-esque projects to help people figure out their positioning struggles and then rewrite the homepage as like sort of place where this can live. That starts snowballing, getting more and more clients. And then eventually it didn't really make sense for us to stay a part of this other agency because, again, they did more like product design, product dev. And this was more of a marketing function. They didn't really do marketing as a service. So we had an amicable split. Thankfully, the founders sort of gave us their blessing to spin off on our own. We start Fletch. And then we realized that the same problem that made it so hard to market this custom service agency was effectively the same problem that every single one of these software companies had, that the software is really, really flexible and can be used in so many different ways. And so when companies say, well, how do I not leave any money on the table? How do I reach out to as many different customer types as possible, not push anyone away? And then they end up with these incredibly broad messages that are almost like the doctor knocking on the door again.
Yeah.
Like, I have this software. And, that's only exacerbated by all the AI stuff of AI agents that can do anything and these AI models that can be used for any reason. So it's the same underlying challenge. But, fast forward 4 years later, we've now helped position over, I think we're getting close to 600 companies because we only do these little sprints that are 2 weeks long. We don't really have long engagements. And we work with so many businesses. It just gave us a ton of ammo to make a really, really strong methodology and framework that we think, obviously we're a little biased, we think is the most robust positioning framework for B2B software companies of any out there. And I think we can back that up by saying nobody else has positioned as many companies as we have. So we've gotten more reps than I think anyone in the whole world. So yeah, that's Fletch in a nutshell. That's all I've been doing for the last, four-ish years, and here I am.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing component of go-to-market that is so essential yet so often overlooked when it comes to positioning and messaging. Like us as marketing leaders, like, we like to jump to the exciting things sometimes, like the channel, like even like the website design, how we like take our visual interests and our brand to market. But yeah, it is just such an essential component. Do you know, one of the things I love on the Fletch website is your before and after section. Yeah. And I often go in there, like we're actually rebranding at the moment, and I was like, let me check out some examples that like Fletch have done, because why not? Like, you guys are the best.
Yeah.
And do you know what? it's funny how often you see the same kind of challenges though pop up.
Yeah.
And the before section, it's like you can kind of see the same mistakes creep in again and again
Oh
and
yeah.
again. It's like brand strap lines being used instead of actual messaging statements that tell
Yeah.
the market what you do. It's like you've just said, say everything. Like we
Yeah.
do everything for everyone. And I'd love to know how you unpack that issue and what the impact of it is. Particularly that one around like we do everything for everyone. How often do we see that? Like it's loads, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's a recurring issue. I just think before we perhaps dive into that question, I just want to sort of build on that, which is to say I love the focus of what you do, right? The commitment and to continue and focus on this problem, is both really admirable, but also what leads to I think the phenomenal success that you're having. And this problem is so prevalent. You made a really interesting point about the fact that there is a difference between positioning, as a concept, and your website. But however your buyers see you and perceive you is what's critical. And if your website is how your supposed buyer forms their own conclusion about where you're positioned, then that is linked directly, and you can't break the link with your positioning. And so this, positioning and the homepage message are so very important to get right, and yet they are one of the hardest things for businesses to get right. And I think that is because they're so often perhaps lacking the perspective, the evidence, the right way to look at it that lets them get out of their own way a bit, and understand how to optimize for the result they seek. So really prevalent issue, one that can be quite hard to course correct on, given there are usually some quite strong opinions about company website homepages internally in various places. And so, in a way, it's a bit of a public service that you're doing as well, helping companies fix this problem. So yeah, very, 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 very widespread and important. So back to your question. What was that again, Dan?
I've forgotten now.
To that same point, though, to that same point, I think we always try to tell people it's a little bit of a bait and switch. Like when we got started, we had no credibility. We came from nowhere. We had no Silicon Valley background, never been in a venture-backed company, all those types of things. Rob, my co-founder, he used to work at Oracle, and he has some more tech background than I do, but like we were not well known. And so we couldn't go out and say, hey, hire us to help you fix your core company strategy. Like they're like, well, why would I listen to you guys? So we came in through the homepage door and said, well, why don't we just fix your homepage? And that made it easier to buy for the customers. And then we could say, okay, so great. In order to fix the homepage, let's answer some questions, right? Who really is your core customer? Say, well, we kind of got these 5 or 6 different ICPs. And I would say, well, what does that stand for, ICP? Well, it stands for ideal customer profile. And I'm like, interesting. Kind of feel like ideal should be 1, right? The ideal, right? Can you have 6 ideal, like philosophical, even, like the ideal of things, right? Like Aristotle or whoever that was, like, it's like this pure main important thing. So we backed our way into these company strategy questions. And then eventually when we got enough credibility, had worked with enough big name companies with credible logos and, trusted and had more of this case studies and things behind us, we could sort of pivot and say, we're going to come in and do the positioning primarily. You're going to hire us to fix your positioning. And then we still kept the homepage because it makes it easier to buy, because people are like, okay, well, if I get my positioning solved, but what happens then? What do I do with it? We're still like, we're going to knock off this big thing in your to-do list, which is part of probably a website refresh. Let's get the primary homepage right. But we constantly tell companies, even in the span of our projects, the point of this project is not the homepage, right? Like if you go and you change your positioning and you put it on the homepage and that's it, most likely nothing's going to happen unless you're like, some super low cost, widget that you're selling for like $5 and it's like direct to consumer or something. But we don't really deal with those companies. We're mostly dealing with B2B software companies, higher ACV, like 50K and above. So with those companies, it's like the homepage is really not going to move the needle much. because these are more considered purchases and stuff like that. But we say it's still so crucial to get it right because there's only one of them. There's just one homepage with one H1, one body underneath, which is usually a sentence or two. And everyone has an opinion on what it should say and what it should be. And so if you can get all your executives in a room and get them to agree on what's the core thing we're going to market with, the chances that that message is going to then permeate throughout the rest of the org, through all the go-to-market stuff, is just exponentially higher. Like a lot of other people in our field will do sales decks as the primary deliverable, which makes a ton of sense because you're like, well, this would be the greatest place so we could test it. This is where we can go and put it in real world practice. But for us, we're like, yeah, the challenge is then, let's say you get something that's working, awesome. It's documented in a deck that maybe some of the reps use. How are you going to get the rest of the business to rally around this? Yeah. How are you going to get the people in HR to be able to explain this when they're vetting new employees, right? How are you going to get your sales team, your marketing team? How's the product team, if it's kind of sequestered in the corner of this like sales org, which usually is not like a, super publicly available thing where everyone could just go and see, well, what's the sales decks look like? It's usually like in some Google Drive or SharePoint, instance where you can't really find it. So we're like, the homepage, you just type in the URL of the business and there it is. Anyone could see it. Customers, employees, investors. So, sometimes we'll get pulled into these like conversion rate optimization questions. And we're like, that's like ancillary to this. Because again, if you have a bunch of traffic coming to a homepage for your old positioning, and then you make a big strategic bet to change who you're focused on. Like, let's say you were mainly servicing SMB and you're like, I think the opportunity is in the enterprise.
Yeah.
And you could change the homepage and you're like, we're wasting all these time with these tiny businesses. We're starting to land these enterprise deals. We think we need to shift the company. So then you let's say you update the homepage, the language, maybe even the branding, right? Like it goes from being like a fun cutesy thing. And now it's like a very serious looking business. What's going to happen to the conversion rate the day after you launch it? It's going to plummet because all those smaller businesses are going to come on and say, wait a minute, I thought this company was like more for me. This seems like more of a serious enterprise. This is maybe not for me. So if you're judging it by the conversion rate, you'd be like, oh, what a failure. But it's like, we're talking longer time horizon.
So positioning has two jobs, right? Which you've touched on within that. It's not only to qualify those people that have seen your message, come to your homepage and thought, okay, that is the right solution for me. It's also to disqualify at the same time.
Yeah.
In that example you shared there, okay, that brand is going to position for enterprise deals. So you'd have thought in that process they will shift the way that they sell, they'll shift the way that they serve their customers. So they do want those, small businesses to come onto the website and think that's not the right solution for me. That's a good thing, and conversion rate might dip, but like you say, it's looking at the right metric to qualify if that change was the right one to have made.
Yep, exactly.
So I think one thing that we might have missed from this conversation so far is, how do you actually know if you have a positioning problem?
Yeah, we typically give people a set of questions. They are, people read our website and they do not understand what we do. That's a classic one. Or people read our website and they don't know why they should pick us over the alternatives. Another one is everyone on our team describes our product and our target customers in very different ways. Yeah. And then sometimes we have a suite of products and we really don't know how to explain all of them together. Those are kind of like the typical ones that we see the most. But those first two, right? They read it, they don't get it, or they get it and they don't get why it's different. That's probably the core. And that really tells you, are you in an immature market or are you in a mature market? And does your messaging match? The amount of CRM companies that have a message on their homepage or just in their broader messaging, in their outbound and things like that, that's some version of like, get our CRM because it's going to help keep track of your pipeline, increase your deal velocity. It's all these things that you're like, yes, that's the promise of the CRM category.
Right.
But which one should I get? Why should I get yours and not Salesforce, when Salesforce is the one that everyone gets. And when companies don't realize if they're operating in a mature context or an immature context, they always get everything wrong. And then we see the flip problem happen, where you have this cool new startup that's in an innovative emerging category. And who are they looking at? They're looking at all their competitors who are also in Y Combinator, Techstars, other little startups. And they go to the customers and they're like, our product in this category is way better than all the other vendors. And they're trying to do like differentiation against the other companies. And the person on the other end of the conversation is like, I don't even know what this thing is. Like, what is this for? And they're trying to say like, don't buy the other one, buy us. And so there's this weird mismatch, and you have to meet the customers where they're at. And so most companies will tell us, well, wait a minute, but I have some customers who are very mature and some customers who are very immature. So what do I do? And that's where we sort of flip the question back at them. We say, well, first of all, you have to realize these are two different segments. You probably, when you segment your market, are not segmenting by category awareness, which we think is like the core thing that you need to be segmenting by to make a marketing message work. But almost nobody does. You can look, I've looked at hundreds of ICP docs and, decks and, all sorts of things like, this is who we serve. And they're always a list of firmographic stuff. We're going after HR companies that are based in the UK that have 500 or more employees that do X amount in revenue. They have all these lists, details about the firm, right? The firmographics, but nothing about their category awareness, the level of maturity as it relates to the category that you're in, because that's going to ultimately determine if the message lands or doesn't land. If I go out pitching a CRM as if you've never heard of a CRM, I will not win the business, because they'll say, I don't understand. Why would I get yours? I'm just going to go with the tried and true one. So that's really what people need to be thinking in order to make this message land.
Got ya.
Yeah. Processing.
It just looked like you were writing down.
I'm writing everything down.
Right.
You bet. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because positioning it's this intersection. It's thinking about what do you want to represent in the mind of a customer in order to make an effective sale that is, positive for both you and the customer in terms of lifetime value. And so many positioning efforts within companies, even when they're good intentioned and trying hard, will omit one or more of the important factors. So they might be really, really good at isolating a single ICP, for example, but failing to appreciate that they're in a mature market and there's lots of messages being heard every day, and there's a need to find a way to create relevance and resonance with the specific buyer, or they will lack the customer needs, pains, and problems reflection, and be totally internally focused on what we perceive our product strengths to be. And so bringing all of those elements together to realize that it's not just an internal exercise, it's very much an external exercise about where you want to go in your sector is, I think, key to success and key to understanding both the role of positioning and how to succeed when doing it. I'm interested to know to what degree is positioning, do you find is it a big shift? You talked about moving SMB to enterprise versus just failure to communicate what positioning is now in market.
Yeah, I think we'll get a sort of a different swath of people who are coming in and really are going to have a pretty significant repositioning. And then some people who just need more of a re-articulation of what they are. But almost nobody who checks those boxes of like, people don't get what we do, or they get what we do, but they don't get why. Those types of people, 99% of the time, have not actually picked a real marketable ICP. That their ICP definition is not actually a marketable segment. And this is sort of an illustration of this. Like, I'll ask you guys because I want to hear what your take is. I did a poll on LinkedIn about this a while ago. Would you rather be in a company that has a product that, let's say, serves 5 different use cases for one specific industry. So let's say we serve 5 different use cases for construction.
Yeah.
The other product in company 2 serves one use case, but in 10 different industries. Which one of those is going to be easier to market and go to market comparatively?
I want to tell you about another show on the HubSpot podcast network, Marketing School. Hosts Neil Patel and Eric Su give you daily 10 to 15 minute episodes packed with actionable insights from their own experience building and scaling multiple companies. In a recent episode testing AI tools head-to-head on real marketing jobs, websites, thumbnails, clips, recruiting, and growth analysis, they break down which ones actually get the work done. If you're looking to sharpen your AI tech stack, that is absolutely the episode to start with. Daily insights, real results. Listen to Marketing School wherever you get your podcasts. Right now, every B2B marketing team is trying to figure out AEO, where they stand, whether it matters for them, and what they're supposed to actually do about it. The best place to start is knowing where you stand. We're offering a full AEO analysis of your brand's visibility across AI search engines, how often you're mentioned, what you're being cited for, and how your competitors are showing up. Then we'll walk you through the findings on a call with clear next steps. And we're doing all of this for free. You can request your analysis in the show notes below. For
What would
me,
be your guess?
I would choose option A. I think. I feel like I'm being tested here. I think when I think about it logically, an industry specialism allows you to dive super deep into that audience, have a serious understanding of what they are trying to achieve holistically, even outside of those 5 use cases. Like, you understand everything there is possibly to know about that industry. Phil?
Yeah, so this is the sort of thing that would send me into a corner for quite a few days to really analyze and try and work out.
Got 5 seconds.
Because anytime you introduce the multiplicity and the multi-line conundrum into it, you create real difficulty. And you've got to work out, again, this might come back to the sort of category, but marketing, trying to market or sell 5 different solutions to one customer has its challenges. Yes, you can understand the customer well. You know how to reach and how to communicate with them, but you've either got to pick which one of those products you're going to lead with, which one of those solutions you're going to lead with, or how you're going to try and unite them and homogenize them, versus the other approach. Whereas if you've got a single product and it's got a single job to be done, so to speak, and buyers are searching for the job to be done, then there's advantages in that model as well. So I think I'd probably run away from both.
They are a little bit of like pick your hard, they're both going to be challenging. But if you just think of a amount of effort and, let's say, just assets you would have to create, right? To me, the second category, one job to be done, will be infinitely less effort than the first one. Because if you think about a marketable segment, right? Like, what would it take to market? You have to say, here's the problem you have. Here's what you're trying to accomplish. Here's the current way that you try to accomplish that. And here's how our solution will help you reach your goal in this specific job to be done better than your competitive alternative. So like that right there is kind of like, a messaging bundle or something, like for a specific segment. In the first one, it seems like it would be simpler because it's one industry. And you're like, well, I'm an industry specialist. But if you have these 5 different use cases that maybe aren't necessarily connected to each other, it actually will be significantly more effort because you'll have to create those bundles for every single different use case. And you will be fighting competitors in each of those different use cases. And I have a funny example to walk this out. So imagine you're like, a startup and you say, I'm very, very narrow. I'm religiously narrow. I've honed in. I'm going to build my whole business around selling to tattoo artists, right? So you're like, that's it. It's a small TAM. I'm not going after this giant venture-backed story. I'm being very, restrained. And I'm just going to go sell to these tattoo artists. So you say, okay, well, what problems do they have? And I say, well, the tattoo gun, it's kind of like it's not that good. I have a newer, better tattoo gun that can solve all these issues. I'm making this up, right? So you say, I'm gonna go to market and I'm gonna sell this tattoo gun. You're just like, okay, well, that's great. So you start selling it to tattoo artists, they love it. Awesome. Well, what's some other problems we could solve for tattoo artists? Okay, well, a lot of the tattoo artists I talk to, again, I'm making this up, they are at the shop all the time, so they have a lot of marital problems. So a lot of them are struggling in their marriages. What if we made an app that was marriage counseling in an app for tattoo artists? Great. Second product, I launch it. I get some tattoo artists on it. They think that's cool. And then I'm like, well, what else could I sell them? And I say, well, they also really struggle with tax prep. When it comes tax time, they're collecting all this cash and stuff from people, and they got to put it. So what if we made a tax prep app? And he's like, great. It's like, awesome. And then these startups would come to me and say, all right, so Anthony, we've got these 3 products. We sell them to tattoo artists. We have one ICP, sell them to tattoo artists. And, you know, the gun costs $300. So that's a one-time purchase. The marriage and counseling app is like a $10 a month thing. And then the tax prep happens once a year, but it's like $1,000 or something. What we would really love is to sell all of them at the same time, because that would be the best for us, right? How can we market these things all together? We're looking for a combined story. And then you would say, well, what is the combined story? What would be the combined job to be done of someone who would say, I need to fix my tattoo gun, fix my marriage, do my tax prep? What's the story there? What would be the cold email that you would send to a tattoo artist to sell those 3 products against something they're trying to do? Can you guys think of anything?
Well, it would be like live well or something.
Yeah.
Live well, right?
Yeah.
But then we get into the challenge. So that's what almost everyone does, is they say, I'm going to pull from a much higher level job to be done, right? Which sometimes will be like, grow your business, increase your revenue. But that brings us to another concept. We've called this job coverage, where it's like, if you claim to service a job to be done, how much of that job to be done do you actually cover, right? So if I sell the tattoo gun, the marriage counseling app, and the tax prep, have I really covered the job of living well?
Right.
Like, probably not. There's a million things that would be under living well that I'm not going to cover. So people would perceive my claim as being bullshit, right? They would say, you don't help me live well. You just help me with these random 3 things. So like in reality, these are 3 segments. It feels like it's one segment because I'm saying tattoo artists, industry focus. But people who need a new tattoo gun are not necessarily the people who have marriage problems. And people who have marriage problems are not necessarily the people who have tax prep problems. So if I was going to sell these 3 products, there is no unified story. It's just 3 products with 3 stories. And who's my competitors, right? The tattoo gun competitor is the other tattoo gun providers. The marriage counseling is, a real counselor. The tax prep is an accountant. So now I'm waging 3 wars, 3 battles, 3 positioning strategies, 3 messaging strategies, 3 outbound strategies. And then any one of them are going to want to see testimonials and case studies in their relative thing, right? They're going to be like, if I'm selling the tattoo gun, someone else who had the marriage counseling app, they're going to be like, these things are not cross-pollinating. You wouldn't be like, well, you should buy my tattoo gun because all these people loved my marriage counseling app. Like, what? So I don't know, long illustration, but I think it gets to the heart of it, where people, because we're looking at software, it's not so blatant. Like when you hear those things, it sounds so silly. Who would think that you could sell these things at once? But since it's software, we delude ourselves and think, I actually probably could sell the software that does these 3 different jobs to be done, 3 different use cases. Not realizing it's the same thing as just having 3. It's like a business that sells a car, a boat, and a coat or something. And you're like, hey, you should buy my car. Why? Because we make great boats.
Or coats.
Like, what? Or you should buy my boat because I sell really good coats. What? It just doesn't make any sense.
And
it's obvious in physical, but not as much in software.
I'm getting the vibe that you went out for for dinner with a friend last night who's a tattoo artist who's having marriage issues, who also needs a new car, but is thinking about getting a boat as well. But
you love this coat. It's interesting. I mean, this I think is really, really compelling, and it's actually a problem that businesses just walk into simply by growing and succeeding sometimes, right? And so it's kind of, it makes it, hard, in some cases harder to address, because it is a symptom of success in some cases. But just for people listening, when we talk about the inverse, so you've got one product, with one job to be done, that you can sell well to 10 industries or 10 customers, that could sound to people like 10 ICPs, but it isn't, right? So how do we tackle that disparity? It's we've got the one ICP, but we've got 3 products. That's 3 battles. It's 300 times as hard. But we don't want to be in a situation where we've got one product, one job to be done, but we've got 10 ICPs, right?
Yeah. And it really comes down to, so we've seen people do the inverse of what I'm suggesting, and they say, I service one job to be done, and it shows up in all these different industries. And you say, great, what's that job to be done that shows up? And they're like, it's really, we connect disparate systems, right? We connect different siloed systems. And you say, okay, is that how the customer would conceptualize the job to be done? And they're like, well, not necessarily. Like the e-commerce businesses that we sell to, they say, I'm trying to connect my ERP to Shopify. They're disparate systems. And then when we talk to the, construction one, I'm trying to connect Procore to my whatever. And it's like these specific things. And you're like, so would any customer ever say, like, the big goal for this quarter is we're going to connect our disparate systems? And they're like, well, no one would say that. Then I would say, that's probably just different jobs to be done then. Like, you, from a product angle, are seeing these abstracted away, and you're able to see that they're similar problems. But again, it has to be from a customer perspective. Because again, we go back to what's the point of a segmentation? It's a group of people that you can market to.
Yeah.
So if I can't show the same cold email to these 10 industries and have it be perceived in the same way, then they're not the same segment. Because again, if I send emails to these 10 and I say, hey, are you trying to, a lot of people we see are struggling with disparate systems that are not connected. Is that a problem you have? We've got a solution that connects your disparate systems. They're gonna be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what does this even mean? Like, are you a human? Is this a robot? Like, no one talks like that. And then I would have to then actually change it and say some sort of specific message for those people, right? In their world, I have to say, right, we talk to people that are trying to connect Shopify and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, it's its own message. So we're talking about scalability in terms of the go-to-market, right? Like, how much can we reuse the same identical assets? Can I show in front of these people? So like, you go back to a lot of the big PLG companies from the 2020s, right? Like Calendly. Mm-hmm. I can show a CEO, a doctor, a teacher, a message where it says, hey, are you trying to schedule meetings over email? And they all would say, yes, I am. Hey, you probably just send emails back and forth being like, does this time work? Does that time work? And it's really annoying. What if there's this product that could help you figure out exactly when to do it and have a selected times and all that stuff? And that's why those types of companies grew so fast, because again, one job to be done that truly is shared by all these different industries. And for Calendly, you wouldn't say, oh, look at how many different industries, like look at how many ICPs they have, right? You'd be like, well, kind of. I mean, not really though, because they really just have one segment that they're going after, which is a job to be done based segment. Yeah. People who are trying to schedule meetings over email.
Yeah.
And that shrinks the complexity.
Yeah. I think that's an important message to take away, because it's creating that alignment, the simplicity, understanding that you've got to find a place where it's a shared way of describing, of thinking, and of solving a problem. That is a segment. And the minute you get into territory where there's a difference in how we talk about it or how it's perceived, you're at a decision point where you're going to say, well, are we going to try and market to both of these segments at once? And have we got the budget for that? Usually the answer is no. Or narrow that down. And so many businesses are afraid to narrow, but it's actually usually positive, because we're never really that narrow, right? This is a big world we live in, and the narrow isn't usually too small. But these are definitely the themes and concepts that we see people, wrestling with when they're trying to get this right.
Yeah. I want to give listeners something actionable to take away, right? So, Anthony, why don't you grade me on my approach, right? If I was going to go and figure out if we have a positioning problem and in our business right now, I'd be thinking about interviewing key stakeholders in the business, like 30-minute call with, 10 key stakeholders, and asking them a series of questions about what they think the business does, like what they think the benefits are, who they think we serve best, etc., etc. Then collate that down into findings, have everybody in a room and share those. Is that a good approach, a bad approach? What would you do differently to say to somebody, here's how you are going to go today and identify if you've got a problem and rectify that?
Yeah. I mean, I think you could do that. I think there's a lot faster way to do that than even that to tell. And it sort of comes down to this. This is a loose framework that we've sort of developed. If you think about positioning, the thing, like you said before, Phil, you're finding a spot to live in people's brains. So the way that we interact with this very complicated world is we categorize things. We put things in buckets, right? You say, this is my phone, this is my car, this is my computer. Even people, right? This is my boss, this is my spouse, this is my child, my friend. So we put all these things in buckets. And so it's the same with software or services or whatever. People say, what bucket do I put you in? And so companies have to either say, I am in an existing bucket that you're familiar with, which, like we would say, positioning in a mature category. That's really just strategy 1. Strategy 2 would say, I am in a category, but you've probably never heard of it because it's new and emerging and nascent, right? And so for strategy 2, it's you're more aligning yourself to a job to be done, and you're saying, I'm software that helps you do this X thing that you're trying to do. Or you could say, I'm in a new category, right? I don't want to be put in anyone's existing bucket. I'm going out to create a new bucket from scratch. So there's examples of companies in strategy 1, strategy 2, strategy 3 that have really, really become successful. So it's not like there's one that's better than the others. It's all very circumstantial and based on the product and where you think the opportunity is. So like the first thing you would just look at is our company in a category or not? Is there multiple categories, right? And you could do that without asking anyone. You could just look, right? Like, what do we call ourselves? And so if you list out and you say, well, actually, we kind of are spanning a lot of categories. Some people put us in this bucket. Some people put us in this bucket. Some people put us in this bucket. And even, not even customers, but maybe we're going out to the market saying 4 or 5 different things. Then the question would become, okay, well, do we want one of these categories to be the primary thing people think of us for? And I always do this. This is a fun exercise. If I had to ask you guys in a word or two, what is Salesforce?
Cloud CRM.
CRM, right?
CRM, yeah.
Yeah. What does Stripe do?
Payments,
right? So I've asked that hundreds of times. Everyone says payments for Stripe. Everyone says CRM. But that's not the only thing they do. They actually both have, 30, 40 products a piece. Stripe also can let your startup get incorporated in Delaware. That's not payments.
Yep.
But it doesn't matter because it's like I'm known for one thing. So you look at your company, you say, what are all the categories we span? Are we willing to be in one of them primarily? And then I would look at, does our messaging reflect that? Are we saying we're in this category, right? And then the next question would be to say, do I feel like most of the customers that we sell to, do they already know about this category or not? So you say, well, most of them do. So, okay, maybe it's more mature for the segment we're going after. And then the follow-up question would be, are we saying why we're better than the other vendors publicly? And usually the answer is no. And you say, that's probably where we have to change. But if you go back and you say, actually, most people do not know about this category, then it's a question of saying, are we saying the specific job to be done? Because there's another thing, too, that every product category has a corresponding job to be done. From the biggest to the smallest, right? They can be big jobs or small jobs. And it's usually like an inversion of the name of the category will get us to the job to be done. So customer relationship management, the job to be done, managing customer relationships, right? The scheduling tool like Calendly is for the job to be done of
scheduling meetings,
scheduling, right? So there you go. The Slack, the communication platform,
messaging,
communicating, right? So every category has a corresponding job to be done. And so if we say, all right, so we're in this new emerging category that people don't know, have we communicated to them through the lens of the job to be done? Are we saying you're trying to do X and we're a better way to do that? Usually the answer is no. And so maybe that's what you have to do. And so like what we're doing with companies is we're helping just map the options. We're saying, okay, what categories could we play in that are mature? What categories could we play in that are immature? And then is there an opportunity for a new category? And the new category strategy is really looking at, are there existing jobs to be done that don't have a great solution, right? Are there workflows, tasks, responsibilities that someone in the org has, whether that's up to the C-suite or all the way down to like an intern, that doesn't really have a dedicated product category for it.
Yeah.
And you would say, maybe there's an opportunity to create a new category there. So you would look across those things, and then you're really doing like risk analysis and opportunity mapping to say, where do we think the opportunity is? Let's say we're making $2 million a year in ARR, and we want to get to 10. Where do we think the opportunity is strongest? And then there's like, meta level questions of like, should we stay just multi-product? And do we think we have the resources to just have 3 different products and market them separately and try to win them? Like, again, Stripe Atlas, to incorporate your startup in Delaware, is facing a completely different competitor set than Stripe Payments.
Yeah.
They have their own competitive set. And they're just a multi-product company because they're massive. And they're like, we can be multi-product. That's fine. We have, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, maybe billions, actually, probably in revenue, huge amounts of teams, right? So like, we could be multi-product. So those are like questions like that. But like, it does seem like, a lot of people, when they talk about positioning, they see it very much like a customer interview type thing. And that could help us inputs, but it is kind of an armchair thing where you can kind of just sit back and just look at the market and be like, where do I think the opportunity is?
Yeah.
And then some companies are not ready for a positioning project if they haven't done enough customer conversations already or market mapping or looking out there. Like when we ask people, we say like, okay, we're going to be together for 2 weeks. We're going to get your key people in a room. Do you think, knowing that we're going to be together for 2 weeks, we're going to pick something, a strategy that you're going to stick with for the next 12 months? How do you feel about that? And it's one of two reactions. Either they'll say, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. We need to get unstuck. Jeff in sales thinks we need to be going this way. Karen thinks this is the opportunity. We just need to align around something, right? Those people, they're ready for a positioning project. The other people say, what? 2 weeks? I mean, we got to go out and see what's out there. We don't really know who the competitors are. We haven't really talked to our customers. Like, we need to figure out like what really are the reasons that people are buying us and who are they comparing it? Like, that person's not ready for a positioning project. They need to go out and do research and like see what's going on. But assuming you're on the other side of that research and then you actually are stepping into a positioning conversation, it really is just saying, where do we want to place the bet?
Yeah.
Where do we feel like the opportunity is?
There's I think an important message, which is there needs to be gathering of information, taking place before for a positioning exercise to be productive and hopefully
it's a prerequisite,
Yeah. So, businesses need to be collating information from customers, from the market, about competitors, from their own stakeholders as well, and start doing that ASAP.
Yeah. Conscious of time, and there's one thing that I really want to ask, which is around the impact of AI, not in creating positioning, because I think that's clear, like how you could use AI to benefit you if you wanted to DIY this instead of using Fletch, of course. But the impact that messaging in your digital assets and on your website can have now because of AI summarizing companies and what you do. Like, how have you seen that change, and do you need to change messaging to suit the way that AI is summarizing businesses? Like, how has it impacted what you're seeing and doing at Fletch?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of just accelerating the same trends that were already there. Like SEO practices, from what I understand of the people who now do AEO, like answer engine optimization, they say it's kind of the same thing, but better. They're like, all the stuff around SEO that would try to get you ranking, like you're still kind of doing the same stuff. And the LLMs are just better at summarizing and figuring out where you should be. And so I think being extremely clear in your messaging is going to help even more than it did with SEO, where it was kind of a dumber technology. Now being smarter, you're actually going to help. Like, I'll give an example of us. Like, if you search in an LLM and you say, I am, a B2B software startup, I'm struggling with my product positioning. I'm looking for an external consultant. Who should I talk to? Me and Rob with Fletch, we usually come up in the answers. And so when people hear that, and they'll get on calls with us, we'll take sales calls with people. And we say, how'd you hear about us? Oh, I was sparring with Claude and they recommended you. And they're like, that's so cool. What have you guys been doing? Like, you doing some of those cool AEO practices? And we're like, no, we're just existing as a business with credibility in the space. And all the things you do as a focused company will make the LLMs find you, because they're looking and they're very smart to do that. If you go out with this really weird scattershot message, the LLM is not going to see that as a strong signal of like, this is really who you would need, because it's very clear you're not focused. So I think all the principles that were important before are even more important now with the advent of AI.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that. When you think about the way that AI retrieves information and the way that they passage information and then summarize it and synthesize it, it is all around relevancy and being extremely accurate to the prompt that's actually being injected. So
yeah,
the more clear and concise you can be in messaging, which of course is what this conversation has been about, is going to benefit you in many ways, and especially when it comes to AEO now.
Yeah, everything is easier when you're focused. And in this context, that means knowing who your ICP is, having clear sound positioning that enables you to create messaging that resonates and makes sense and connects. And then everywhere you put that, it's going to add to, rather than deduct from the world's understanding of who you are and what you do, whether that's the LLM or the buyer, on your website. So that focus and having those building blocks, those crucial building blocks in place. And we frequently meet companies that don't really have those blocks, in existence, don't really have a stated or documented ICP or positioning for that matter, or any kind of messaging guide, but they are powerful at making everything else easier.
Yeah, for sure. Anthony, just want to leave us on like one rapid fire question, I suppose, which is, what's the fastest fix somebody should look at right now that has the biggest outsized impact when it comes to positioning advice?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's like because we're talking about something that is like core company strategy, there are few fast fixes.
And that could be the answer as well, right? Which is, this isn't a fast thing. Like, it's a fundamental thing.
I think that here's the thing. I would look at your homepage and say, let's say you're in a category, and say, if that category is a category that most of your customers have heard of, just go section by section and say, really quickly rank, is the thing that I'm saying right now differentiated from the other people in that category or not? And if it's not, change it, cut it. Like we were just working with a company last week, and we were going through their product and we were looking at the page, and I said, would the other category vendors say the same thing? They said, yeah. And I went to the next one. Would they make the same claim here? Yeah. Next one. Yeah. This one. Well, not that one. Okay. Interesting. What about this next one? Yeah, they'd say that. I'm like, and your customers would know this category and know the competitors. Yeah. The competitor's way bigger than us, and everyone uses them, and they're kind of the market leader. Yeah. I'm like, you probably want to differentiate then.
Yeah.
Right. So I would do that and just make sure, because again, if you look at your hero and you're like, it's a project management tool, and then the body says, get everyone working on the same page. It's like, that's what the tool does. Like, that's what they all do.
Yeah.
And assuming you're not living under a rock, you've probably used a project management tool at some point. That's wasted air, wasted space.
Yeah. Amazing. That was awesome. Any final thoughts from you, Phil?
No, that's great. I think this is such a crucial area of, well, I was about to say the modern B2B go-to-market, but it's not modern. It's always been crucial.
Yeah.
But we're always keen to help and see what's amiss in companies' strategy in this area. So no, been fascinating to discuss.
Yeah, awesome. I would say as well to listeners, the Fletch newsletter, actually, which Anthony forced me to sign up to,
Great.
is awesome.
Bloody good, I imagine.
Yeah, like really good. So that's one thing that I would say is a takeaway. Like, go and subscribe to that, because it's just like, yeah, public service to B2B companies. So yeah, awesome. Right, I don't want to take up any more of your time, Anthony, because it's been like such a useful and enjoyable conversation. So yeah, just want to say thank you for joining us. And yeah, it's been great having you.
Thanks for having me. Super fun to be with you guys.
Thanks for listening to the episode today. Before you head off, if AEO has been on your mind and you're not sure where to start, here's something worth doing right now. We're offering a full AI visibility analysis completely free. We'll look at how your brand is showing up across the major AI engines, what's influencing those results, how competitors compare, and what you should do about it. Then we'll walk you through all the findings on a call. Actual findings too, specific to your business with real next steps. Not a template, not a PDF, a proper analysis. You can request yours by clicking the link in the description below.